For this half an hour, investing in U.S. energy. President Trump is headed to Pennsylvania today to support the natural gas industry. As the 2020 race heats up, the president is expected to tout industry deregulation and energy independence. Joining me right now is Energy Secretary Rick Perry. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes. Thank you.
What can you tell us about where we are right now? The last time you were with us, you made a point to remark the recent attack on the Saudi oil fields was like a blip because the U.S. is so independent in terms of our own production.
Yeah, I think that was proof positive that's what's happened in frankly, the last 4 or 5 years in particular. And the U.S. ability, we're into 26 different countries now, 5 different continents where we're delivering our LNG. We are economically competitive around the world. It's one of the reasons I spend as much time in Europe as I have over the last 18 to 24 months, is trying to sell as much LNG in there as we can, and obviously give those folks the option, if you will, of not being held hostage by Russian gas, and we've been very successful. So what the president's doing today in Pennsylvania is to remind people that he's doing what he said he would do: reduce the regulatory burden, be able to speed up economic development in these places that are blessed with these natural resources like the Marcellus and the Utica Shale in Pennsylvania. That's the 3rd largest oil field in the world, and being able to take that, add value to it, create the footprint, if you will, of which we've got down in Texas in the petrochemical industry there, as a national security issue. I cannot express how important, from a national security standpoint, developing that Appalachian region, and the president knows that. He supports that. It's one of the things he's going to be talking about today.
Yeah.
Adding value to that product and then shipping it around the world to give America this geopolitical impact that we've not had maybe ever.
And yet some of your leading Democratic colleagues, opponents to the president, are calling for a fracking ban.
I think that's so short-sighted, falling into the political trap of whatever the flavor of the day is from the left-leaning side of the political aisle. The fact is that the state of Texas, my old home state, if you will, 12th largest economy in the world, we saw emissions drop drastically, NOx and SOx, carbon dioxide down by 20% while I was the governor, because we made this massive transition over to LNG and getting away from those old, inefficient plants. The same thing can happen in Europe. I tell my European counterparts, listen, if you're serious about the climate, if you're serious about reducing emissions, you've got to have LNG as a transitional fuel, and frankly, move into small modular reactors on the civil nuclear side as well, to get you to that zero emissions place that they say they're going to get to. Well, they can't do it without American LNG, and they can't do it without American technology and innovation in the civil nuclear side of things.
Let me get your take on the Middle East. There were obviously concerns about the oil fields in Syria a day after the ceasefire there expired. Secretary, you're headed to the Middle East tomorrow. Give us your assessment of the president's plans today in terms of the pullout in Syria, and how you're going to make sure that those oil fields are protected so that ISIS doesn't get back in business and get their hands on that revenue money.
Yeah,
the revenue from the oil fields, rather.
Correct, and that is incredibly important, and I think the president understands that, the administration understands that, and that's going to be the final goal. How you get there, and there's a lot of ideas about it. Listen, the president's approach here has been unconventional. I recognize that. The president recognizes that, but I think we're headed in the right direction. I think we're getting close to being able to address that issue from the standpoint of keeping those oil fields protected, keeping them in the hands of folks that will not allow ISIS to go back in and then rejuvenate, if you will, the terroristic threat that they propose.
Secretary, there's a lot of disappointment that you are stepping down. You announced it. You'll be resigning as Energy Secretary effective December 1. The news coming days after your department said it's not going to comply with any subpoenas tied to the impeachment inquiry. Why are you stepping down, sir?
Well, let me tell you, there's not disappointment from my wife, my beloved Texas, or my dogs. So, and for 8 or 9 months, I've been looking for a exit path, if you will, getting things into shape, and I did that. I got the artificial intelligence office stood up. We got the LNG headed in the right direction. We got this small modular reactor conference finalized. So the timing was right for me to go back to Texas. Let me address this issue of the subpoenas. And the Congress is not following the law. This is unprecedented what this Democrat-controlled Congress is doing. I'd be more than happy to go. I mean, I've had multiple news conferences and news requests of which I've talked about that the president did absolutely nothing wrong. I was in those meetings. He never said the word Biden in any of them. There is no quid pro quo going on here like the Democrats would like to make you think. But we are not going to participate in an unlawful effort. When the Congress follows the law, when Congress follows the president of this inquiry in this impeachment effort, then I'll be happy to go. But not until they have a vote, not until they follow the law. I mean, it ought to be pretty simple. Follow the law.
So is there any reason to believe that you're stepping down because of any involvement you have had in terms of this Ukraine corruption story?
Well, I think 8 or 9 months worth of stories that I was headed back to Texas ought to put that to bed. The president knew that. Everyone knew that. Anyone that wants to put those two little dots together, just chasing a ghost.
Secretary, I don't understand how this whole impeachment inquiry, if that's what they're calling it, rather than an impeachment show, is being done in secret, and how your colleagues expect anything to get done. I mean, how does this play out? USMCA hangs in the balance. You've got China hanging in the balance. You know, all these policies, prescription drugs, infrastructure, all these sky-high dreams that were talked about over the last year by the Democrats. And right now, it's all about impeachment.
Well, good point, Maria. I mean, the idea that we have the potential to just put this economy on fire. If the Democrats would come along. I mean, listen, I've been in this political business for, coming on 40 years now, public service. And when we got our elections over with in Texas, the Democrats and the Republicans, we might give some fiery speeches on the House floor, but we work together for the betterment of the people of the state of Texas. For the life of me, I don't understand why men and women that I consider to be, relatively full of common sense and desire for this country, to be so blinded by hate of this president that they're willing to put the economy of America in jeopardy.
It's pretty extraordinary, Secretary. We'll be seeing you soon, we hope. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
Secretary Rick Perry joining us.
So long, Maria.